No mere man since the fall is able in this life perfectly to keep the commandments of God, but doth daily break them in thought, word, and deed. James 3:2, in many things we offend all. No mere man since the fall is able in this life perfectly to keep the commandments of God, but doth daily break them in thought, word, and deed. James 3:2, in many things we offend all. Man in his primitive state of innocence was endowed with ability to keep the whole moral law. He had rectitude of mind, sanctity of will, and perfection of power. He had the copy of God's law written on his heart. No sooner did God command, but he obeyed. As the key is suited to all the wards in the lock, and can open them, so Adam had a power suited to all God's commands, and could obey them. Adam's obedience ran parallel with the moral law, as a well-made dial goes exactly with the sun. Man in innocence was like a well-tuned organ. He was sweetly in tune to the will of God. He was adorned with holiness as the angels, but not confirmed in holiness as the angels. He was holy, but mutable. He fell from his purity, and we with him. Sin cut the lock of original righteousness where our strength lay. It brought a languor and faintness into our souls, and has so weakened us that we shall never recover our full strength till we put on immortality. What I am now to demonstrate is that we cannot yield perfect obedience to the moral law. Firstly, the case of an unregenerate man is such that he cannot perfectly obey all God's commands. He may as well touch the stars or span the ocean as yield exact obedience to the law. A person unregenerate cannot act spiritually. He cannot pray in the Holy Ghost. He cannot live by faith. He cannot do duty out of love to duty. And if he cannot do duty spiritually, much less perfectly. Now, that a natural man cannot yield perfect obedience to the moral law is evident. Firstly, because he is spiritually dead, Ephesians 2:1. How can he, being dead, keep the commandments of God perfectly? A dead man is not fit for action. A sinner has the symptoms of death upon him. He has no sense. He has no sense of the evil of sin, of God's holiness and veracity. Therefore he is said to be without feeling, Ephesians 4:19. He has no strength, Romans 5:6. What strength has a dead man? A natural man has no strength to deny himself or to resist temptation. He is dead. And can a dead man fulfill the moral law? Secondly, a natural man cannot perfectly keep all God's commandments because he is born in sin and lives in sin. Psalm 51:5. He drinketh iniquity like water. Job 15:16. All the imaginations of his thoughts are evil and only evil. Genesis 6:5. The least evil thought is a breach of the royal law, and if there be defection, there cannot be perfection. As a natural man has no power to keep the moral law, so he has no will. He is not only dead, but worse than dead. A dead man does no hurt, but there is a life of resistance against God that accompanies the death of sin. A natural man not only cannot keep the law through weakness, but he breaks it through willfulness. We will do whatsoever goeth out of our own mouth to burn incense unto the Queen of heaven. Jeremiah 44:17. Secondly, as the unregenerate cannot keep the moral law perfectly, so neither can the regenerate. There is not a just man upon earth that doeth good and sinneth not, nay, that sins not in doing good, Ecclesiastes 7:20. There is that in the best actions of a righteous man that is damnable, if God should weigh him in the balance of justice. Alas, how are his duties fly-blown! He cannot pray without wandering, nor believe without doubting. To will is present with me, says the Apostle Paul, but how to perform I find not. In the Greek it is, how to do it thoroughly I find not, Romans 7:18. Paul, though a saint of the first magnitude, was better at willing than at performing. Mary asked where they had laid Christ, for she had a mind to have carried him away, but she lacked strength. So the regenerate have a will to obey God's law perfectly, but they lack strength. Their obedience is weak and sickly. The mark they are to shoot at is perfection of holiness, but though they take a right aim, yet do what they can, they come short of the mark. The good that I would, I do not, Romans 7:19. A Christian, while serving God like a ferryman that plies the oar and rows hard, is hindered for a gust of wind carries him back again. So says Paul, the good I would, I do not. I am driven back by temptation. Now, if there be any failure in man's obedience, he cannot be a perfect commentary upon God's law. The mother of Jesus' obedience was not perfect. Mary needed Christ's blood to wash her tears. Aaron was to make atonement for the altar to show that the most holy offering has defilement in it and needs atonement to be made for it. Exodus 29:37.